This is a list, not just any random list, but particularly a list you don't want your country to be found in. It is a list about debt. Released on 2021 by the World Bank, it highlights the top 10 countries with the highest debt risk exposure. 10 countries out of the 195 countries in the world, and when you go down that list, you find Nigeria at number 5. You might ask, what does high debt risk exposure mean? What is this list exactly about? First of all, it is not a list of countries with the most debt. It may come as a surprise to you, but countries with the most debt include USA, China, United Kingdom and France. It is not necessarily a cause for alarm if a country is in debt. This list is about something worse. To simplify it as much as possible, a country with high debt risk or credit risk exposure is a country that shouldn't borrow any more money simply because it won't be able to pay back. It won't be able to pay back because it is already owing so much, and it is looking like getting out of that debt is nearly impossible, so borrowing more isn't an option. Two primary reasons why a country may not be able to pay off its debt is because it is borrowing at an unregulated rate, or it is not producing enough revenue to service its debts. These countries could be in serious trouble. When a country is unable to pay its debt, it could cause a cascade of economic breakdown if not further managed properly. Things begin to happen. Bad stuff. Interest rates rise, exchange rates rise. The stock market collapses. The country may give up its assets to make up for the debts. The overall economy may go down. And here you have Nigeria at number 5 on this list. If you are Nigerian, if you have a business, if you earn a salary, or if you're just trying to make a living, whichever way is suiting, you should listen. You must do so, especially at these times, because this is why Nigeria is in so much debt. Alright, we can't talk about Nigeria's debt without pulling out a bit of history. We have to travel back in time to when civilians began to rule, because the military regime wasn't exactly transparent and accountable. When looking at Nigeria and debt, I really have to start from when the country transited into democracy. 1999, Olusegun Obasanjo just became the first democratic leader, the president of Nigeria. On resuming office, he met an external debt of $28 billion left by the previous military regime. At the end of his first tenure, this debt was reduced to $23.51 billion. By 2003, he contested for a second tenure and won the presidential election. But by 2004, the debt had risen back up to $28.22 billion. It seemed as though the country's debt was rising out of control. Luckily enough, just then, a scheme was devised by more developed countries, the creditors, to help the world's poorest and indebted states. The scheme was called debt forgiveness. Debt forgiveness simply means a lender forgiving either or all of a borrower's outstanding loans. So with this, the Nigerian government didn't need to pay off the huge debt they had acquired. It was a big relief. While the Obasanjo government made $28 billion as of foreign debt in 1999, it left just $2.11 billion in 2007 due to this debt forgiveness. Now this was like a fresh start. A debt of $2 billion isn't hard to pay off. They could easily progress from this point, right? Obviously not. Umaru Musa Yar'Adua was president. May his soul rest in perfect peace, but the debt rose to $2.58 billion under a short regime. Jonathan continued from where he stopped and pumped the debt further to $7.3 billion at the end of his tenure in 2015. Okay, at this point something had to be done. It was obvious that the country was on track back to their vomit. They needed a change. One man could offer this. In fact, change was exactly what he promised to offer. Change. This man was Muhammadu Buhari. Today he is widely known as the most sensational display of incompetence the Nigerian economy has ever seen. I'll assume you don't know why, but then let me give you a hint. At the end of his first tenure, the debt had flown gracefully from $7.3 billion to $21 billion in just 4 years. This man had reaped havoc in 3 folds. Debt rose 3 folds. In 4 years, he took us back in time to the very beginning of this whole mess. Somehow, we had the guts to recontest for president in the 2019 presidential election, and of course, this is Nigeria. He won. His second tenure is just about to end, and how much is our debt right now? It is hard to get these exact figures because of lack of transparency and the data is somewhat hidden, but the last official report indicates that the total amount represented by the domestic and external debt stocks of the federal government of Nigeria were 39.56 trillion naira or $95.78 billion, a total debt of $95.78 billion. Today, as of the time of this recording, it could be much more. It is likely much more. One thing we know for sure is that this is a mess, a big mess. There are two important groups of questions you should be asking at this point. The first is, why in the world do we keep borrowing money? Why are we just borrowing money and borrowing upon an already burdensome debt? What exactly are they using this money for? The second question you might be asking is, why can't we pay back? Like, why are we not paying back these loans? What exactly is going on here? I mean, even if we are borrowing, if we pay back, the debt wouldn't be increasing. It may have a slow decline, but at least it wouldn't get any worse. The answer to these questions is in fact the very essence of this video. And now you have to understand certain things. Borrowing money in itself is not bad and it's even proposed as healthy. A nation needs to borrow at times. The largest debtors in the world today are from the West. With borrowing, they have created super economies and built massive train terminals, massive airports, schools and hospitals. The idea is that the nation borrows money and invests in building an asset that would yield good profits, improve the nation's economy and provide more employment. From the profit produced by the assets, they would pay back their loans, or more importantly, they would be found better than where they started. The issue with Nigeria is misappropriation of funds, or should I call it what it is? Corruption. We take large loans and we do not effectively put these loans to use. Many times nobody seems to know what the money is being used for because the project for which the loan is taken is not actualized. Yet, we have to pay back that loan. Let me paint this picture for you properly. We borrow money to boost the economy. For some reason, we fail to use the money as we should. The economy is not improved, but it further declines. Now we have to pay back that loan from the already crippled economy. It is like we are walking right into a trap we have set by and for ourselves. What is worse is that our government revenue isn't rising commensurably to our rising government expenditures. By government expenditures, I mean how much the government is spending on things like national defense, medical research and healthcare, infrastructure, and also your salary, perhaps. So what I'm saying is that the nation isn't making enough money to cater for these needs sufficiently. To top it all, there has been a smooth decline in our oil earnings. Nigeria heavily depends on oil for money, and right now we are making less from oil, and as time goes on, the world is gradually drifting away from oil. So we don't produce enough revenue. Our cost of expenditure is increasing and debts are piled up with interest rates rising over time. Inevitably, it has led to this, that a bulk of our revenue is used to service debts instead of being used for expenditure. By servicing debts, I mean paying up debts already being owed. The federal government spends trillions of naira yearly on debt servicing. It doesn't end there. We even borrow money to pay for debt we have amassed from other people who had borrowed us money in the past. Essentially, our debt service is almost equal to our revenue. At some point, it was about 96% of our revenue. There is only one direction this is going. We are hanging by the line, and sooner or later, we may see the worst yet. Yet, individuals are harboring so much money than they can ever consume. Nigerians are struggling to survive and many can't afford to live on a 3 square meal. Yet there is some man somewhere living on the nation's money, embezzling and stealing without accountability because the government is founded on impunity. If you haven't understood why Nigeria is in so much debt yet and why we are on the path to doom, this answer is in 3 words: corruption, incompetence, and sheer impunity amongst our leaders. What is the solution? I am only a young lad. I don't know. I'm not an expert in economics and territorial transformation. I don't have a history of competence in leadership and I've not been in government before. I may not even have a clean track record free of the stains of corruption, but if you saw someone who has, would you vote for him? If you saw someone who was competent enough, who had the potential ability to change this, would you vote for him? If you had the opportunity to change this path we are headed with your decision, with that card you have in your hands, would you? Would you? Well, I would.